Hello, guys. Welcome to a little bit of a Merri Hour bonus. We really wanted to talk about Mandalorian because, as you guys know, both of us caught up on the show very, very recently, and we didn't want to spoil things, I guess, for folks in the live show. So we're like, why don't we just do this separate video? So that's what we're doing right now. We are doing a Mandalorian conversation up to the latest episode, which is Chapter 4 or Episode 6 of Season 2. This conversation is going to be loaded with spoilers. So if you're not caught up to that point, don't watch this yet.
Also, you mean Chapter 14, right?
What did I say?
Chapter 4.
Oh, sorry, guys. I don't know why. I just like
Let's clarify.
Put the number out there.
Wait, can you hear? Hold on.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Chapter 14. What do you think? What has stood out in these first 6 episodes of the new season?
So hold on. I'm plugging my headphones just to make sure there's no double echo when I say these things. Okay. But I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a huge Star Wars guy. I'm not the person who gets really excited when the movies come out, or like to be the first person, let's say, to like hype it and get that into it. I didn't really love Star Wars until, wait for it, The Last Jedi. That was the movie that kind of, I went from a casual watcher and viewer and someone who, entertained by it, to being like, oh, I really like what they're doing at this point. So honestly, casually new to the Star Wars fandom.
Before you go on, can I just quickly ask you, what was it about Last Jedi that really clicked for you?
They tried something different. And I know that scared a lot of people, but I think Rian Johnson's vision gave me something that I was looking for in my sci-fi. I argue or not, I think Star Wars to that point was pretty safe and formulaic and entertaining. Still saying entertaining. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I could watch it, and I didn't own the toys. I didn't get invested. I still play the video games. Rogue One is a great game on 64. But The Last Jedi was the time I walked out of a Star Wars movie and I said, oh, they actually took a lot of creative license here. They actually did a lot of things by bringing in other, whether it was like the anime influences and things of that nature. I think Rian Johnson just had more fun with it. But all of that, sorry, that is just a precursor for me to say that.
I know, I was curious, and it's good to know when you're reviewing a show that is absolutely brimming with Easter eggs.
Right, exactly. So like, I don't get half the Easter eggs half the time, but I also didn't expect to like The Mandalorian as much as I do for the same reasons I was saying before. The Mandalorian seemed to me just, oh good, another offshoot of the Star Wars that we know and love. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it has been that at all. This has been Space Dad and Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda in quotes. Obviously, we know the real name. We know it's not really Baby Yoda, but
you could say Grogu because this is a spoiler.
Grogu. Yeah. That's right. Yes, it's Space Dad and Grogu, and it's a really sweet, wholesome sci-fi adventure. Explorations and babysitting almost, and but like it is that, and I didn't expect. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but it's up, it's down, it's not consistently amazing, but the highs are so freaking high. Mm-hmm. Like it's just so much fun to watch Pedro Pascal have to play dad and also Taskmaster. I feel like we talked about this on our live stream.
Yeah. That's pretty much my only criticism, and it doesn't even feel fair to call it a criticism because I still think they make it work, where it does have a bit of a repetitive nature to it as far as Mando has this task to deliver the child. And in order to do so, every single episode, he needs to get information from someone. And in order to get that information, he is forced to do, as you put it, a task for them. And that is the formula that it runs with in every single episode. And, part of me is like, why don't you spice it up a little? But it works. It works. So what am I complaining about?
Not much. And, you look at the roster of directors they've had come in and out throughout these seasons. I mean, we're talking about Taika Waititi got an episode in. I think he had the season finale of season 1. And we're talking about Bryce Dallas Howard being my favorite director of The Mandalorian so far. Dave Filoni has done his work and as a writer, and I don't know if he's not co-creator, right? He is a writer on the show.
I think creator credit just goes to Jon Favreau.
Yeah. But even getting like Deborah Chow and like Rick, I don't want to botch his last name. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly. Like, I am so happy to see all of these people be getting opportunities in this world. It speaks to the sense that they are allowing these talents to work in Star Wars who absolutely deserve to be there and maybe weren't even getting the opportunities they should have outside of Star Wars, like just in general. So I mean, it's exciting, and you can see it in the show as well because it doesn't feel like an anthology by any means. It is a fluid story. Everything works in unison, and the narrative. It all feels like The Mandalorian, but
Mhm.
what Bryce Dallas Howard brings to her episode is different than what Taika brings to his
Yeah.
episode, is different that what Filoni brings to his, because one minute it's a samurai show, the next it's an adorable father-son little epic, another it's a siege.
Hmm.
That's
That's
good.
part of the reason why I think that formulaic approach to the structure of the show works, is because that's where you get your differences and your nuance and where it feels fresh every single time. It's because you have that different eye and you actually let that different eye do something different. I will say though, as a big fan of Star Wars in general and someone who is aware of probably not even all but many of these Easter eggs, yes. Yeah, I mean, this to me is the best kind of fan service, justifying all your fan service. I mean, even in episode 1. So, Cobb Vanth is a character from a book series that I read, and it paved the way pretty beautifully to the return of Boba Fett that excited me quite a bit. But just going down, I want to go down my list of points that I wanted to bring up in order. But first, Cobb Vanth, Timothy Oliphant was just pitch perfect casting. I love seeing him in it, and I love seeing that character. But then I have a question for you. When you got to chapter 2, The Passenger, so just for a little background info here, because I work for a website that covers a lot of this stuff, I knew a lot of the spoilers and I knew a lot of the big talking points. And I know people were freaking out about Baby Yoda eating eggs. And I was surprised when I got to that part, and it didn't bother me as much as I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to make me really sad.
It
And
didn't bother me in the least bit. And to be completely honest with you, that was, it was a comedic choice, and I don't see how that was detrimental to the character at all. I don't see how it was her. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm a monster for saying that, but I found it kind of funny.
I did really like the frog character, though. I mean, that's another thing I love about the show in general. I just love the practical effects. I
Oh
think they
yeah.
do a brilliant, brilliant job with that. And whenever it is stuff like digital set extensions, I think it looks great.
And just to stay on that one little point, they even pay it off in the sense that Baby Yoda is a curious little, sorry, Grogu is a curious little creature. And sure, Grogu's never interacted these nummy little eggs before, so he wants to snack on them. But you still get the following episode, which Bryce Dallas Howard directed, which ends with Grogu like petting the tadpole that's now grown and like understanding
Yeah.
understanding what has just happened. So something that's stupid and what people might get mad about actually still matters. Like it still pays off. It's still there for a reason.
I will say, though, at the end of chapter 10, I really did enjoy the horror vibes that we got from the birth of the spider creatures. Chapter 11 is the Bryce Dallas Howard one. That's where we got Bo-Katan live action. I was pretty pumped about that. You know what else I really like about the way that they're digging into, Mandalorian creed, is showing how strictly Mando himself adheres to it, but how there are other interpretations of it out there. And I think that they are exploring that with great depth right now. And I'm curious to see the path that paves for him in particular, like where he winds up landing in that respect at the end of the show, if not the end of this season.
They bring it into the sense that it's almost cult-like, or, it's like religious sects where this is all Mando knows, and this is the way. And that's how Mando's been brought up. And it's very fun, or maybe not even fun. It's complex. The idea that all Mando knows is not all that is to the world. And now he's seeing other Mandalorians who have a different way of living. And maybe what he's been taught isn't the right way. He's lived an entire life not taking his mask off. And now maybe someone's come into his life saying, hey, by the way, that's all bullshit. Like, you could have taken your mask off whenever you wanted. Like, you're living by like bygone rules.
I haven't been reading it as bullshit. I've just been
No, no,
reading
no,
it as
no, it's
yeah,
not
as
bullshit,
a
but I'm saying like,
situation
yeah,
where you just have different interpretations of the same thing,
right,
and you preferring one path over the other is okay.
yeah,
And I kind of like that about it.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
so then we get the Carl Weathers directed episode, Chapter 12, The Siege. And here's another thing that someone recently brought up to me in that episode. You know the scene in the school with the
Mhm,
kids?
mhm.
Someone has a Ray hairdo, so many are theorizing that that is Ray's mother. I mean, it seems like a very specific choice to make if it didn't have a purpose. So I wouldn't be
That's
surprised
fair.
if it had some sort of link. I can't do the timeline math in my head right now, but I mean, why not?
I think one thing I will say is, and I think this is brought to light with bringing Boba Fett into things, is they don't do an amazing job explaining it for newcomers. Let's put it that way. I
Okay.
knew, I knew Boba Fett myself the minute you put the armor on. I'm like, oh, Boba Fett, this is great. But if you listen to the dialogue, if you listen to what they're actually saying, they never really explicitly outline it for people. They never like you're just supposed to know in some instances, and I think it could be just a little better. Like there's just a little bit of world building where you have to know Star Wars to a point, and if you don't, you just kind of catch on eventually.
I mean, I do wonder how many people are going into this completely cold as their
Yeah,
first Star Wars
and
experience.
that's fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's, like I know Boba Fett had a limited role and
Right.
just became almost like a cult icon type character from the original trilogy, but because of the visual awareness and how high that is, I feel like that's probably one of the easiest characters to sell that way.
It
But
is.
you still bring up a very fair point, and this is how I feel about, I mean, even movie sequels. I feel like a movie should always stand on its own 2 feet, regardless of whether or not you've seen what's come before. And I would want to hear someone's opinion who had no clue who Boba Fett was and then saw this latest episode, what they thought about it.
Yeah,
Did you
it's.
did you feel the same way about Ahsoka?
I knew it because of my friends, and I knew
Okay.
Ahsoka because people had mentioned it. But the same thing, I would have no contextual knowledge outside of the Mandalorian and what was presented to me. Otherwise, like there's no, and not, they don't have to do it either. I'm not saying they have to. I'm just saying there's a lot of Star Wars nostalgia and a lot of Star Wars interlocking knowledge that maybe if you're not in the world as heavily, it just might be a harder honestly a harder
Yeah.
television series to follow in that sense.
I mean, thinking about Ahsoka in particular, because I have I know a lot of the information. I've watched Clone Wars, I've read the Ahsoka
Right.
book, so
Mm-hmm.
I have context as far as why she's in the position she's in. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like starting with that episode of Mandalorian isn't necessarily a bad place to start. I mean, they basically convey the information that feels like a necessity for the operation at hand, you know what I mean? And then it's, if you like Ahsoka as a character as presented in the Mandalorian and wonder what got her there, that information is accessible elsewhere. But as far as the story of the Mandalorian goes, I think they get just enough across. But then again, that's coming from the perspective of someone who naturally knows these things. So
Right.
I can't assess it quite the same way as someone who went in cold.
Yeah. I also I think the Mandalorian is trusting, I will say. Very trusting of leaving Grogu in a lot of places and predicaments that
Wow.
like maybe last episode, the one thing that got me a little bit is just leaving Grogu to do his thing on that rock. And it's kind of like it
What,
was
what choice did Mando have? They were
but
being
like he
attacked.
holstered his pistol. There's all these things where it's like he seemed less aware than a Mandalorian should be to let Grogu get picked up like that. But again, it's not a complaint. It's just one of those things where like they had to make listen, Grogu was going to get captured no matter what. We knew that was going to happen. But I feel like it did a little bit of a disservice to the Mando because he's better than that.
No, I'll say the same thought crossed my mind. Don't leave him because he'll get captured. But I also thought they sold
They
well
had to.
enough
They
the
had to.
idea that he had no choice.
And then you get Grogu tossing around stormtroopers and that little bit of it's so great. That was such a
Yeah,
great scene.
I'm a big fan of Grogu as a character, and I'm just a big fan of how they wound up bringing Boba Fett back, because that That was a very big deal in the fandom for a very long time, and we've been on kind of a roller coaster ride as far as our expectations with how the franchise in its current iteration was going to bring that character back.
Yeah.
With, the movie and show rumors and all this kind of stuff. And like, I really think that they wound up settling on an excellent way to do that, because I don't know, even though it was only a small amount of screen time, it felt very meaningful to me and it made sense. I was very worried that bringing him back wouldn't make sense
Yeah.
and it would change how I viewed what goes down in Return of the Jedi. And I'm very glad that that's not the case. I'm just very concerned that he's not going to come back next episode, and I've grown attached of the three of them working together now. But then I think, because oftentimes, Mando only interacts with people for a single episode and then we leave them, and maybe they do come back, but maybe they don't. So I'm worried about that in this case. But with the Razor Crest having been destroyed, it does feel like he is reliant on them for that reason.
Yeah.
We've got 2 episodes left of the season. We've got one coming up directed by Rick Famuyiwa, and then the last episode of the season will be directed by Jon Favreau. As far as I can tell, we don't know the titles of these episodes, so given where everything ended up in chapter 14, Matt, what do you think is coming our way next?
We have, hold on a sec, did they list them? No. Sorry, I have it open and I thought they might have listed it. Yeah, we just have chapter 15 and 16. It's simple. I mean, Grogu is now on an Imperial ship. Grogu is I think it's the sense of being tested, where can he go dark or light? And Grogu will have to make choices as a child, and the Imperial forces want him to go dark and want to harness that power. And Pedro is going to have to, the Mandalorian is going to have to step in and show him the way of towards the Jedi. And at this point, it's got to be a siege of some kind. Maybe not a siege, a prisoner breakout, because you got to break Grogu out. You're not going to do that on an Imperial ship. So someone's got to get in there. It's got to be a smash up mission. And maybe he needs a lot of help.
Well, they already made mention of getting Migs Mayfield.
Yes. Yeah. I love how Bill Burr gets a recurring character on The Mandalorian. It's so funny.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about that whatsoever. But I hadn't thought about it quite the way you put it, but it would be a really nice emotional arc for the series if they did it that way. It just feels like a lot of ground to cover with just 2 episodes to go. The thing I got most hung up on, because obviously immediately after this last episode was added to Disney Plus, I started to see so much fan art of Dark Grogu. I don't think that's something that can be accomplished by the end of this season. So my mind started to shift more to the experimentation element of it. And I think that they might go down that path and make that the focus rather than trying to turn Grogu, because that can also lead to, a season 2 cliffhanger of showing the bigger picture of that kind of experimentation and what was going on behind the scenes with the defunct empire kind of resurfacing. So that's where my mind's at, but I do really love what you described.
Do you think, so here's the way I'll put it then. Do you think that The Mandalorian will have Grogu back by the end of the season? Because I think that plays into exactly what I said, in the sense where I think the light versus dark has to happen eventually, but you're right. It's 2 episodes left. I think that's next season, but does Mando get Grogu back this season?
It's possible, because if there's an immediate payoff to the Migs, actually, all right, wait, no, never mind. What if the next episode is them trying to get him back? Yeah. And then if that is the case, I would say my prediction would be for the season finale to be them trying to break Grogu. All right, here's my prediction, actually.
Go.
They get Migs back in the next episode. Then they formulate a plan for the season finale to get Grogu back. And something happens towards the end of that plan where Grogu makes the decision to stay because he has been somewhat turned.
Okay.
And that could also feed into the idea I was saying before about the experimentation aspect of it.
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, I think that's where my head is at right now.
I don't think Grogu and the Mando reunite. I agree with you there. I don't think they reunite by the end of the season, and that becomes a larger problem.
I think they reunite. Like, I think Mando is looking at Grogu when Grogu makes the decision to be like,
Okay.
nope, I'm
Got it.
stuck with the bad guys now.
I can see that. All right. I'll accept it.
Crazy predictions. But just in case literally nothing I predict ever happens, but just in case this happens to be the one, I'm glad that it is
It's here. It's on the internet now.
video and captured. All right. So what I think we should do, I probably shouldn't do this while we're recording, but do you want to do a full season 2 review when it's done?
Sure.
Okay. Well, now I have that captured forever.
Oh, that's on the internet.
I'm sorry,
All right,
on the spot. All right.
Let's do it.
There you guys go. Those are our spoiler-filled thoughts of Mandalorian Season 2 thus far, up through Chapter 14, The Tragedy. Thank you guys for watching this. Before you leave, Matt, plug your socials and stuff.
At Donatobomb on Instagram, Letterboxd, and Twitter.
Go check that out. And also make sure to tune into this channel every Friday night at 7:30 Eastern, because that's when the Merri Hour goes down. You get movie and TV talk, and then you also get some beer pong. It's a good time. We just hang out, we chill, we have a couple beers or some seltzer vodkas, whatever you prefer. It is
only in
totally
December.
fine. I'm not judging.
Don't judge. You can't judge.
You. Maybe I'll bust out some Prosecco on the next episode. Switch
there
it
you go.
up.
Bring
You're
the whiskey.
inspiring me, Matt. All right. We're out of here. Thank you guys for watching.